All right, what's up YouTube? Got some foot pockets from Spear Pro. These guys here. Some blades also from Spear Pro. Just wanted to quickly go over the installation. It's pretty straightforward. A number of videos on YouTube. So I just really want to point out a couple things, little tricks that I didn't really see on other videos that really helped. One, put this outside in the sun. So do this like lunchtime, get it nice and hot, nice and warm. It'll make it a lot easier. Two, these blades are really easy to see through. You can see where they're bent. That part that's bent right there, see a nice line there. You can either put a piece of tape there or just use that line, that crease, as your visual reference. When you put them in, you want to have them somewhat aligned with this crease in here that you can see there. And with these, since they're nice and clear, it's really easy to see when you're there. But with darker fins, it may be a little more difficult. So the key is just when you push these in, like so, just make sure they're fully seated, and then make sure they're even as well. I.e. even not crooked, not tilted, anything like that. So I'm just gonna go ahead and put these in real quick. We'll move on to the next part. You'll see in some other videos they mentioned being careful not to slice the tendon while you're putting it in. With these glass blades, I'm not sure, they don't really feel like they're sharp enough to do that, but it's just being a little extra careful there. And I just try to push down nice and evenly to get them seated in there. And with these, you can see it's pretty obvious when you've got the blade in that crease, and you can see that they're even in terms of distance from the edge on both sides. So these are pretty straight. Gonna give them kind of like one more good shove. Just really try to wiggle them in. All right, you see they wiggled in pretty good. All right, so these are in good. They're right there where that crease is, angled down. So just want to talk about a couple other things real quick. One is the hardware. Sometimes these come with the foot pockets, sometimes they don't. These Spear Pro foot pockets came with the hardware, a couple screws, and then you've got this part here, which actually will hold the fin in place or lock it in place. This will go in the top part, and then these little keepers, which will go on here and here. They can be a little tricky to put on, so we'll go through that as well. But some of the videos I saw have you drill these holes now and go ahead and lock this in place before doing the next part, which, I mean, to be honest with you, that makes sense to me, because you got it in, you got it centered. If you screw it in and put it in, well, it's definitely not going anywhere after that. That being said, I've seen other videos where it doesn't say to do that, and they do them afterwards. I just did my first fin, and I didn't put these in first, so I'm just going to go with that for this next one as well. Like I said, I can see the alignment, I know where it should be, and I can check it before I drill. The one thing that I really did want to point out, though, which I didn't see really identified on other videos, hopefully you guys can see this, is that when you're putting this on, this has got a lip on both sides that you have to that is much wider than this slit, so you have to work it onto the lip and around the lip. But what you want to do, maybe this angle shows it better, is if you start the slit on that edge right there, it will help you work the rest of it onto the fin. So that to me is the key, really, in making this part easy, is getting the tendon over that initial piece. And once you've done that, it kind of forces the rest of it to follow the track and makes putting it on a lot easier. As you can see, I'm kind of starting it on one side, then wiggling it so it gets to the other side. And once you get to this end piece, it's starts getting even kind of easier. You can almost just slide it over because it's a lot more flexible. You can almost just slide it over and then work it onto the back side just by kind of rolling it down here. There, and then you just kind of like wiggle it in like that, and there you go. Shows it being pinched kind of a little bit right here from doing that, but that will come out as it warms up. But yeah, that's the real key. Get this nice and warm. The warmer you get it, the better. So a nice hot summer day, keep it out in the sun. Fortunately, it's starting to get to the late afternoon now. I did my first one around lunchtime, and it went on super smooth because it was really nice and warm. So we'll do the same thing to the other side. Once again, I'll point out that you want to get the slit here started on this piece here where it's narrower, and that way it kind of guides the rest of them on. And once again, do this with it when this is warm to the touch, and it makes it so much easier. All right, so that's putting on the tendon. The other thing is you can also see that in doing this, the fin is still in the same position it was before. So, but it probably does make more sense to go ahead and screw those in before moving on to this step. All right, so I'm back. Went ahead and put on the other tendon. As you can see, went on pretty smooth. Once again, let this thing sit out in the sun until it's, you know, kind of hot to the touch, and this thing will go on really super easy. So I'd mentioned I saw some videos where they install the sort of retainer for the fins before putting the tendons on, and some that did it afterwards. Looking at my other fin that I did, it did come a little bit, you know, kind of out of position from where I originally pushed it. I mean, minorly, but kind of in the interest of doing things perfectly and consistently, then I would say probably does make more sense before you put the tendons on and before you put the retaining clips in to go ahead and drill those holes to make sure it stays exactly where you wanted it. And you can see everything's in alignment here. I think you guys can probably see that through the sun. So we're gonna go ahead and drill those holes. And one thing to keep in mind when drilling the holes, and I'm just gonna do it over my leg here, is one, you want the hole to be centered as much as you can. You know, this isn't super precise type work, but you want it centered, and you want it sized for the screws. So you're gonna have this retaining piece, and you might think, oh, this has to go through, it needs to be this size. It needs to be the screw size or that hole size. So don't drill it to this size, drill it to the screw size, which is about 5/32. So I've got 5/32 drill bit here, and you can see if you can see that, but we're just right at that size. So I'm gonna do my best to just center this, and when you do it, you do want to push down on here so you don't cut the rubber. And you know, one thing you can do to make it even better is to start with a small drill bit, as the larger drill bit sometimes will want to wander. All right, that one came out pretty good. Do the next one. All right, that one's even better. All right, so you end up with a couple holes like that. And then this piece here goes in the front, like so. And this piece goes at an angle. You can kind of see, or not at an angle, but it is angled. It's kind of like a wedge. Fatter part of the wedge goes towards the crease in the blade. And then you're just gonna screw that in. I'm probably gonna go back and just put a little dab of silicone caulk on these holes. I've always heard with fiberglass, I'm not a fiberglass expert, but I've always heard that you never want to expose the raw glass to water. It just over time can cause you some problems. So I will probably go back and add some caulk in there. My back piece fell out here. The back piece only goes in one way. It's very obvious which way it goes because it has a specific shape. So you just line up the shape to where it's supposed to be. And that's all there is to it. Let's go ahead and screw this one in. So this will keep your fin in place while you're putting your tendons on. So I put the tendons on first, but then I just had to really kind of wiggle it in, push on it to get it all perfectly lined up again. Whereas if I did this first, I wouldn't have had to do that. So either way kind of works, but it's less work if you put this part in first, then do the tendons. All right, I tried putting the tendons on last night when it was kind of cold, and it was a bear to try to get them on. So highly recommend, once again, putting it out in the sun. Just let it get hot. It's going to save you a lot of headache. Just makes it so much easier. All right, so the next part that's kind of challenging is this piece right here. These are retainers that go over the rubber tendons. You can see it's very narrow. It barely fits around here. It's extremely tight. It's an extremely tight grip. So between this retainer here and this clip, these things really shouldn't move, locked in really well. So the kind of trick with these is that, as you can see, this is angled slightly, almost like a slash. So you just want to line these up, and they are marked right and left. This one's marked right. That's right as you're looking at it, right? So this is my right hand, left hand. So right goes over here. On these particular retainers, right is on the bottom side from what I've noticed, and that matches the angle. So what I do is I take this side of the clip, put it on here first to kind of start it, just over the top of that tendon. Hopefully you can still see that. And I just take a little flathead screwdriver. Those of you that fish, you probably recognize this little pen reel tool. Use a dull flathead so you don't risk puncturing the rubber, cutting yourself, that sort of thing. And all you're gonna do is just put the tip of that flathead underneath the other side of this clip and kind of pry it over like this. Pry it over that rubber tendon, because you've got to open it up at the same time as you're rolling it over. So put that tip over while putting pressure on that clip on the other side and force it over, kind of prying and rolling, and eventually it'll get there. And what I do is there's like a little, almost like extra rubber that gets pushed over, so I just kind of push that in while seating that perfectly, and you see the end result is that clip is on there. You notice how this gap matches up, this gap matches up. If you did it wrong, you'd have more of a gap because you'd have an angled section to a flat section. All right, so we're gonna do the same thing on this side with my other clip. Once again, I'm gonna look at the angle, make sure it lines up, In this case, it's got an L on this side for left side. So I'm going to put that here on the, what would be the bottom of the fin. So once again, start kind of at the top, like so. I'm going to try to give you a different angle this time. Hopefully it helps. Get my fingers out of the way. Then I'm going to put this screwdriver, this little flat tip, right under. And I'm going to start this sort of prying and rolling motion, which is intended. Let me do it, switch hands here. This might be better for you guys to see. It's intended to open this clip up as you're rolling it over. All right, there we go. It's coming. Switch hands again to get it the rest of the way. Takes a little bit of elbow grease. Switch it so you guys can see it again. You see there's a little bit of that lip of rubber kind of sticking out. So I just kind of push it down with the tip and get it the rest of the way in so it's fully seated. And once again, I'm using a really dull screwdriver tip because the sharp one might cut through this thin rubber. All right, this is probably the hardest part, to be honest with you. You can see once again that those gaps line up at an angle and an angle, more of a same angle matching. Everything else is pretty easy. All right, and that's it. Ready to rock and roll. All right, hopefully that helps you guys.